In the Yehiratzon that we say after counting Sefirah Shiurim, the Tefillah talks about the purpose of Sefirah Shiurim, l'taref nafsheseinu, v'ruchaiseinu, v'nishmoiseinu. We all have a nefesh, a ruach, and a neshama. And this is the time of the year where we have a special siyata d'shmaya, a special help from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to purify our souls, our spirits. And this is the avodah, the specific avodah of Sefirah Shiurim. Give a little bit of a hakdama to put it into perspective. Imagine if we were to choose a day 2 weeks from now, on a Wednesday, everybody were to wake up given a gift from Hashem. We would all wake up living at our fullest potential, meaning we would have all be at a level of achievement, how we would look if we would have utilized our time properly, our energies properly, and had we developed and refined our midas, and we would wake up, each of us, at maximum potential. So how would we look? We would all wake up with about 10 gaboyim, with a line of 1,000 people waiting for brachas, waiting to give kvitlich to us, because we'd all be very great tzaddikim. We would all be delighted when our friend would be successful. When he makes a lot of money, we would be overjoyed for him. Kavod would be so disgusting to us, it would be like forcing us to eat garbage crawling with maggots. It would be nauseating. We'd throw up when someone would tell us how wonderful we are. We would be calm, we would be serene, we'd be full of menuchas hanefesh, full of goodness, and full of kedusha. Imagine if the next day we were to wake up back our old selves. We would be in a daze, we'd all remember what Wednesday was. Wow, what do you read it from Wednesday to Thursday? It would be difficult. What are we going to do? We would certainly be striving, be trying to think, how do I do to get back to what I was? How do I get back that level, that madrega? That's really me, that was me. I recognized, I looked in the mirror, I saw myself, although we wouldn't look at the mirror if we were in such a level. But it was certainly me. Same clothing, same house, it was me. What would we do? The Sefirah HaKadoshim tell us one of the great agonies of the Yom Hadin, when we come to Olam Haba, is we're going to be put through this. We are going to be shown exactly what we really could have been had we used our lives properly. And the tsar and the anguish that is going to be then, where we're going to see what we could have been and how we didn't achieve that, is going to be unbearable. And the Svarim say that the Eibishter will put a special chiyus into our neshamas to be able to bear the pain of seeing that we didn't accomplish what we really were destined, what we really had the ability to become. Now there's a famous kasha the Mefarshim ask about Kriyas Yamsuf. The Pasuk tells us that when the Yidden were encamped before the Yamsuf and the Mitzrayim were pursuing them, Vayiru Ma'oid, they were very frightened. Vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael Hashem, and they cried out to the Rebbeinu. And the Mefarshim asked the kasha, what were they so afraid of? They had just seen 10 unbelievable miracles, makas, earth-shattering shinuyim in Marochos HaTeva. They had seen the Mitzrayim destroyed. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu took them out with nisim v'neflois, and He certainly didn't take us out to go be drowned in the Yamsuf. And the same Rebbeinu Shleilim, Ad Heina Zeruna Rachamecha, who helped us up until now, will certainly help us now. Why were they so frightened? What's going to happen now? And the Sefirah HaKadoshim, the idea is brought in many of the Chassidish Sefirah, the Balei Musa, that on Pesach we're given a very special gift. HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifts us up to the highest level, bedilug, to a level high above what we really are, to that level that we could really be. That's the Zman Cheruseinu. We're freed, we get a freedom from all the shibudim that are holding us back from being who we really are, and we experience that Olam Habadik type of existence momentarily. By Leila Seder, we may not feel it consciously, but Mazle Chazia, our neshamas, were given that view. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes it away. He says, now I've given you the inspiration, I've showed you what you can be, now you have to go back and achieve that on your own. And this was the command that was given to them at Kriyas Yamsuf, but that's why they were so frightened. Yitzias Mitzrayim, no problem. The Rebbeinu Shalom is looking after us. The Rebbeinu Shalom is koichai ugvurasai malei olam. We have nothing to be afraid of. But now the Rebbeinu Shalom said, Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'Yisrael, I want you to do something. Now you have to get back to that level. Little old me, I've got to do that. Vayiru ma'od, vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael al Hashem. And that the Sforim teach us is the avodah of Sefirah. Sefirah, we're given these 49 days of counting the days, or as I once heard somebody say, not counting the days, but making the days count. To get back to that special matana, the special levels that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave every Yiddish neshama by Zman Cheruseinu. And we're taught how to prepare. These days are compared in the Svarim to days of Chos and Kala. Pesach is the engagement, Varastech li la'olam, and Shavuos Matan Torah is like the chuppahs. When Klal Yisrael, Knesset Yisrael goes to the chuppah with Kiddush B'richu, Shchinte, with the Torah Kedosha, and during this period in between is the time when we have to prepare for the Chasen. Rabbi Chaim Vital writes, the Iker Hachona for Kabbalah HaTorah is Tikkun HaMidas. That's what we're meant to be working on now, because Derech Eretz is called Torah. What's the perfect Hagdama for Kabbalah HaTorah? Tikkun HaMidas, purifying ourselves, rectifying our Chisroinus. As the Shloah HaKadosh writes, the 7 weeks are like the Zion Nikiyim, the days of purity, to prepare for a Chasana. And the Hagdama for Torah has to be through working and doing our best to perfect our Midas. And that's why we find there are very strong nisyonis in Midas in these days. Talmidei Rabbi Akiva will inagu kabed zeh b'zeh, and they died out during the days of Sefirah. The idea is to create such a transition that we go from a level of a behemoth to the level of ben adam. That's why the korban ha'omer was made out of sa'orin, which is a machal behemoth. On Shavuos we bring the shtei alechem that's made of chitim, that's a machal adam. Because everything that's good in us comes from the chelik ha'adam, comes from the chelik that's doimel Hashem. The chalokim in us that need tikkun are the chelik habahamis, the chelik of behema that's within us. So we're going through a transition period where we're trying to purify ourselves and to perfect ourselves. That's the avodah of Sefirah. Now if we look in our Sidurim, we'll find very interesting tefillas. Usually the avodah that we do mitzvahs, we don't even attempt to have any connection to the world of Kabbalah and to the world of Soid. Yet we see when it comes to Sefirah Sa'ima, almost all of Klal Yisrael says these tefillahs that talk about the Sefirahs, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. These are all terms that are really lofty, esoteric concepts we have no inkling at all of what they mean. They're beyond us completely. Perhaps we say it because maybe it has a connection to the word Sefirah. We can't even explain. We don't know. We don't understand what these ideas mean. But we know that these 7 weeks are somehow connected to these 7 lights, oiros, emanations, spheres, however, any word you want to use to translate these ideas. So although we don't have any grasp at all in the true depth of what these inyanim mean, however, we do know that they're somehow connected to facets of our own behavior. If there's an emanation, there's a sphere, there's a certain hanhaga that the Rebbeinu Shalom has in this world that's called Chesed, which is the first week of Sefirah, or Gvura, which is the second week of Sefirah, we know that that's somehow connected to our avodah of Chesed. And if Chesed means hispashtus, it means spreading out, it means ahava, it means mitzvahs aseh, this is somehow manifested in our own avodah of asiyas HaChesed. The Imre Pinchas, Rabbi Pinchas Koretze, if you look in the Sidurim, is from the 7 weeks are divided each 7 days. You say Chesed Shebegvura, Gvura Shebechesed, Tefer, every day different combinations. And he says every neshama falls into one of these 49 categories. Someone's neshama is rooted, the shayrish of his neshama is in Chesed Shegevura, the other was in Tefer Shebiyasoid. And each of us has a shayrish and neshama in one of the days of Sefirah. And that's a meyuchadik, a mesugaldik, a shah, where a person could help purify himself. And perhaps that's part of the idea why it's so important not to miss a day of Sefirah. We don't know which day of Sefirah is corresponds to our particular Shoresh HaNeshama. So we have to have Sheva Shabbosos Temimois Tieno. Now we know that the 7 weeks also correspond to the Zayin Royim, to the Ovois, Avram, Yitzchak, V'Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, V'David, who each one of these was a merkava, was a conduit, was a tzinner of expressing that particular midah and bringing it down into the world. Now we're going to try to follow, I can't say we're going to follow it perfectly, because actually today we're in the second week of Sefirah. We'll be talking about Chesed, and we may get overlap, or I don't know exactly how we'll be able to stick to the schedule of the weeks, but we're going to try to discuss the inyanim and these midas, how they apply to us in our lives and our own avodas midas, and work on preparing ourselves properly for Kabbalah Satira and getting back to that level of potential that was revealed to us B'zman Cheruseinu. Now we know that Chesed is the first week, is the first midah, and it's Avraham Avinu is the first of the others. Being first makes it very, very chashuv. It was the first act that Klal Yisrael performed when leaving Mitzrayim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembers it to this day. Kayomar Hashem, Zocharti lo Chesed Ne'urayach. We still go into Shul Rosh Hashanah, and the Rebbeinu Shalom remembers Chesed Ne'urayach. The first thing we did upon leaving Mitzrayim was engage in an act of Chesed. But more so, if you look in Rashi, in Parshas Lech Lecha V'Agad Lo Shemecho, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises Avraham Avinu that there's going to be the names of the Avos, will say in Shemona Esrei, Lekei Avraham, Lekei Yitzchak, Lekei Yaakov, but he promises, U'becho Choismen, the Chasima will be with your name, Baruch Atah Hashem Mogein Avraham. And the Svarim HaKadoshim tell us that this is a remes to the Chasimas Hagolus, to the end of our exile. We know the world stands on 3 pillars: Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim. Torah, we've fallen tremendously. We have no concept of the madrega, of the level of Torah just one generation before, and certainly not 2 or 3, or what previous generations were. It's been a terrible, terrible nefila. Avodah, we have no Beis Hamikdash. We don't have the tzaddikim who were able to be Beikei Arikim with the tefillas on the madrega that they were in previous generation. Yet we see something extraordinary. In the middle of Gemilas Chasadim, our generation, the generation of Ikvus the Mashiach, has accomplished amazing, amazing things. We have reached B'li Ayin Hara, Yidna Tzadikim, Yidam Agoim Lechasadim, and there's no end to the activity of chesed and organizations and people going out and trying to help each other. And we feel that this is an avodah that we're shaykh to, that we're capable of. B'cho choismen, with your mid Avraham Avinu, that will be the chasima, that will be the end of the golus. And if there is such a haftocha, that means that in this area we all have tremendous potential. Potential far more than we recognize. We may have no concept yet of who we are, what we really could be. I once had the opportunity to speak at a parlor meeting. It was for an organization that helps make Balei Tshuvas in Eretz Yisrael, and Rav Pam Zatzal was from the big supporters, one of the founders, and they had all around on the walls of the house, they had pictures. They had a top picture and a bottom picture. The top picture was, you saw a person, a completely irreligious person who looked frightening, long hair, and the whole, you couldn't see any semblance of a Yiddishkin. And underneath, you see a picture of a man with a long beard, with a Gemara, sitting with his family. So this is the same picture, before and after. And the whole wall was covered with a top picture and a bottom picture. Top picture, you see somebody, a ganzen Frei, and underneath you see a Psahelige Tzuruf and a Psahid, a Chassidische Yid, a Ben Teure. And I was asked to say a few words. So I said, if we would have eyes like Rav Pam Zatzal had, Rav Pam was able to look at the top picture and see the bottom one without having to have the picture there. We need to see the picture. He was able to look and see there was a picture. Now, but let's think for a moment. That means all those pictures were once roaming the streets of Tel Aviv or other cities in Eretz Yisrael, and really walking around inside was a Yid Ben Torah, Talmud Chacham, a beautiful Baal Mishpacha. Maybe we should think that maybe we're not who we are either. Maybe the picture that we have of ourselves is also far from a finished picture. There's much more to us. We haven't even begun to uncover the potential that's really there. If I were to ask, is there anybody here who knows how to play the violin? Nobody can play the violin? Sure. What if I were to offer you, within 2 years, if you can play a song on the violin, there's somebody prepared to pay you $50 billion. I'm sure everybody would manage it within 2 years to play the violin. Now, if I were to approach a cow and offer him $100 billion to play the violin in 50 years, he wouldn't be able to do it because he doesn't have it in him. You could only reveal something that's already there. Sometimes it may take work. I ask a person, could one learn Shas, finish Shas from cover to cover? How could I finish Shas? Really? I'll put you in a koil that pays $50,000 a day. We'd find a way to finish Shas. We'd find a way. If I were to take a sheep or a goat and put him in such a koil, I could leave him there for 1,000,000 years. He won't be able to accomplish. Because we can accomplish what's already inside us. There is potential untapped. And especially, we look at ourselves, we're selfish people. We try to help, we try to do a tova sometimes, but I should be a different type of person, a wonderful person who's just oozing with goodness and loving kindness and chesed and always ready to help out. That's me. We don't know. But if there are people like that, that means it's part of the human condition that we can actually become that way. So let us be misbeinen a little bit in this concept of chesed, which is the first avodah in the first week of Sefirah and the first one of our Heilige Avos, who brought this musik, this concept into the world. Why do we have to do chesed? You have to do chesed. Everybody think why? What's wrong? There are many people who believe, what if it's my money, it's mine, it's for me. If it's my koyach, it's my energy, it's my time. You look after yourself, I'll look after myself. Makes sense. What should be wrong with that? Many people believe that. It says, what do I have to do with you? Let's each person look after himself. Yet we know that a Yid is obligated to do chesed, to help others. Where does the chiyuv come from? We're told in the Torah, v'holachta b'derachov, and Chazal tell us, hadbeik b'midoisov. One has to cleave. One has to be dovuk to the midas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mahu chanun af ata chanun. Mahu rachum af ata rachum. It's like he does chesed and he has rachmanis. We're meant to follow in his ways. Now how much chesed does the Rebbeinu Shalom do? So the Pasuk says, Ki amarti oilam chesed yiboneh. The entire world was built on chesed, which means that every single thing that exists is a matana, is a gift directly from the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rebbeinu Shalom is only giving. He can't take. The Rebbeinu Shalom is shleimus. He's shalem. There's no taking. There's only nesina. There's only given. And every part of existence as we know it is a result of chesed Hashem. Oilom chesed yibana. And it's constant. You don't give much in return. Imagine, if the electric company keeps sending you electricity and you don't pay the bill, ultimately, the electric current gets turned off in your house. Imagine if the Rebbeinu Shalom would, for 1 second, turn off the electricity in the world for non-payment of the bill. Let's just take one of the forces in nature, in Teva, called electricity. Let's say it would turn off for a second. The Eibishter would suck out all of the electric current that there is in the Bria. So what would happen? It would be a disaster. For every plane would come collapsing down in a second. Hundreds of millions of cars would crash into each other. The electrical systems would die immediately and the brakes would fail and the inertia would keep them going. They'd crash into each other. All hospitals would collapse. All factories would cease to exist. All computers would crash. Everything would come to a total stop. You'd probably have hundreds of millions of people would die instantly. But it's much more than that. Because we know that electric current, electric energy, electromagnetism is what holds all of matter together. So not only would the planes come crashing down, our noses would disintegrate, the mountains would cease to exist, matter would not be able to be connected, all atoms would just spread out, and our entire bodies would disintegrate right before our eyes, except that we wouldn't have eyes to see it. All of existence would become annihilated. All of Earth, all of its inhabitants would become annihilated instantly if HaKadosh Baruch Hu were to take away just this one matana of electrical energy. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives it every single second. The Rebbeinu Shalom created a world yesh me'ayin. It's not like a person builds yesh me'yesh. He takes a few pieces of wood, puts together, makes a table, and he goes home. Now the table is there. The Rebbeinu Shalom has to hold the wood of the table together. Has to be yesh me'ayin. So every second there has to be a recreation. A mechadesh b'chol yoim tuva. So the Rebbeinu is not just giving, he's giving and giving and giving nonstop, but he's giving everything. There's nothing that isn't chesed. It's all chesed. That's all the world is. Oilam chesed yiboneh. So when we are giving, we are being mizdabek in the middle of the Rebbeinu Shalom, which is bringing us chiyas. Va'atem adveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem chayim kulchem emes. Chazal say, kol ha'oisa chesed im chaver. One does a favor for his friend. Ma'ala olav ha'kosav ki'ilu bonoi la'olam. The pasuk compares it to somebody who built the world. Shenema ki amarti olam chesed yiboneh. It seems simple enough. However, there's a great problem. There's a very big difficulty. And the difficulty is what all of Avodas Hamidus revolves around. We're all born with a sense of self-awareness. Anoichi, ani. Selfishness. We see it in ourselves when we're the tiniest children. We're looking after ourselves. We take. We have an anoichi. What is the essence of cleaving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So the Baal Shem Tov and the Baal Tanya, many of the Svarim are masbeh this idea. There's a pasuk. Anoichi oimed, Moshe Rabbeinu said, Anoichi oimed bein Hashem uveinechem. I stand before Hashem and you. And the Baal Shem Tov explained it to mean like this: Anoichi, the Anoichius, the sense of self, is what's oimed. It's what's standing, what's creating a mechitza bein Hashem uveinechem. The more a person can break down that Yetzirah of Anoichius, that sense of I, that is what means that's the meaning of becoming one with the Rebbeinu Shalom. The more a person is a Yesh, the more a person is Anoichi, it's I. He's separating himself from the Rebbeinu Shalom, and that's why it's the source of all bad midas. I am angry, I am jealous, I am unhappy, I am in a fight. All of it is I, it's ani. The person, anoichius, being the root and the source of every single bad midah. How destructive is this? It's a terribly destructive force. Let's just take, we all just witnessed, the whole world is in turmoil, right? America went and destroyed a country, now has to rebuild it. Costs hundreds of billions of dollars, they're estimating. The whole world is turned over. Deya Sahin, Deya Saheres, Tutzach. Thousands of people were killed. We don't know what the results are going to be. We don't know Ma'yelad Yoim, what's going to happen. An entire world. Why did this all happen? Why did these hundreds of billions of dollars and thousands of lives have to be lost? The President of the United States issued a warning to a Meshuggah in Iraq. He told me you have 48 hours to I'll let you go into exile. You can live the rest of your life, take your billions, go live like Achashverosh till your dying day. Why couldn't he do it? Anoichi. My covered. Now, even though he knows in 48 hours he's going to be humiliated and shamed in all history, he's going to go down in history as a total imbecile and a total fool. But he couldn't overcome 48 hours right now. Anoichi. So we had to spend hundreds of billions of dollars. For $8, we could have sent him a Mesilas Yesharim. It would have been so much easier. We'd have worked a little bit on Asmid and the whole world would be back to peace. Doesn't work. That's and if it causes destruction in the world, it causes destruction in our lives. Now it's not easy to deal with this, because this is the basis of who we are. We all have that. And some of us have it to a greater degree, to a lesser degree, but we all have it. Go look at little 2-year-olds going on a swing, and they're swinging back and forth. One is saying, I'm going higher than you. The other saying, I'm going, where does it come from? Why is it always I'm? Because that's how we were created. Now to deal with this, a person has to become a tremendous Baal Mussar, he has to work on himself, he has a lot to do. But the Sefirah Shiurim teaches us that Avodas HaNefesh is a difficult thing. However, there's a klal that the chitzonius is mashpia on the pnimius. When things are difficult to work at a deep level, we work at a superficial level. And when we do things, physical actions, ultimately they'll have a hashpah on our nefesh. He says if a person is a lazy person, well, how many times can I tell myself, don't be lazy? I'm lazy. So he says, just put zrizis, walk fast, run fast, do things with your body that will bring zrizis. Eventually the nefesh will wake up too. So the greatest antidote to selfishness, to anechias, which is so destructive, is chesed, because chesed is a physical act, something we can actually do. I could pick myself up and do a taiva for something. If I do it again and again and again, I'm slowly chipping away at that mechitza hamavdelas, at that wall that's separating me from the Rebbeinu Shalom. So we have to think, do we do chesed? Who doesn't do chesed? We're always ready to do a taiva. A yid is always... You need a taiva, first person you call us a yid, havada. We have it in our blood to do taivas. But the emes is, we have to look at it honestly, much of the chesed that we do really belongs to another marvelous, glorious midah that we have, which is called rachmanas. We're also rachmanim. We have it in our genes from Avraham Avinu. We're rachmanim, which is a magnificent midah, but it's not chesed. The Svarim HaMazbeh, the Siddur Shal Shabbos, the Zayat Kodesh, many of the Svarim, the Balei Musa give an arichas to explain this. Rachmanis is not the same as chesed, because Rachmanis still has some of myself in it. I am b'tzar, it hurts me to see somebody else in tzar. So therefore, I'm going to do something to stop it, because I don't want to feel bad. So in essence, there's somewhat of myself there too. I would rather not know about the whole story. If I didn't know, I'd be perfectly happy. Or if I have a teretz that I can do the taiva and a really good teretz, I'm relieved because I don't feel guilty. What could I do? I can't do, so it doesn't bother me because I've relieved that sensation of rachmanas that we all have, and it made it better for me. That's not chesed. Chesed is chofetz chesed, ahavas chesed. A person doesn't have to wait to be nisoirer because he saw a tragedy, he heard a sad story, and he needs to have rachmanas and he wants to fix it. The Baal Chesed is one who looks and who actively searches out, who can I do a favor? The Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos Daf Kuf Daled, Shekein darkom shel goyim lechasodim lorutz achar dalim. It is the way of Baal Chesed to chase after the poor, not to wait for the poor to come to my door. And of course he comes to me, I feel sorry and I'll be very nice to him, which is gewaldig and it's murder, that we should do. But who's going to chase after the poor man? Maybe I could think of an idea, what can I do to help him? That is the Baal Chesed. The Lashon of the Yalkut Shimoni in Mishlei. Kol mi sheyoshon al mitosei balayla, a person who goes to bed at night, umechashiv beliba, and he thinks to himself, lemochar ani mashkim ve'esed toivelet, tomorrow I'm going to go do a favor to this and this person. Osid lismoyach im hatzadikim leosid lo. Such a person will have the simcha and the joy together with tzadikim in olam haba. That means to actively pursue, to be a roidei chesed. Chesed is the midah of hispashtus, of the person's goodness spreading out. I'm looking for who can I give it to? Who can I give to? And when such a Baal Chesed finds somebody like Avraham Avinu, he doesn't feel he's doing him a toiva adarabah. As the Sefirah Shiurim writes, Yachzik lohem toiva. He's thankful to the other person. Shebo lebeisoy, kilu makabel mehem ano. Like Avraham Avinu, when Avraham saw the malachim, he was pleading with them. I'm not doing you im no matzosichem beinecha, al no sava mi'alavdecha, yukach no ma'atai. Please take from me. Please take from me. The rotzen of the Baal Chesed is to be a meitiv. I heard from a Gorah Choshev about Tzedakah. He said, when someone comes to you for help, to give him $100 is easy. The point is to think, what does he need? Does he need a job? Maybe I can make a phone call for him. Does he need some chizik? Does he need any influence? What does he need? Not to just give him so that I feel I was yoitze. I want to tell you a gewaldige Meise. I once had a bocher, a very tired bocher. We learned Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim in Queens, an American bocher who came to us for Shavuos. After we became very close to him, he comes to us more often. The first time he came to us was on Shavuos. Now, he went to Manhattan. There's a bus that leaves from the Diamond District that comes to Monsey on Erev Yontif. And he came there, and he missed the bus by 5-10 minutes. And he had no idea how he was going to get to Monsey. And he's standing there with his bags, and he's forlorn, he's lost, and doesn't know what to do. Suddenly, a Satmar Chassid passes by, and he sees him. He sees this clean-shaven American yeshiva bacher looking around. And he says, well, what happened? He says, I'm trying to get to Monsey. I missed the bus. Oh, you know, there's a bus that goes from Williamsburg, from the Vision to Besmerish. Come with me. I have a car. I'll take you to Williamsburg. Hopefully you'll catch the bus. And worst comes to worst, you don't catch it, so you'll spend Shavuos in Williamsburg. It'll be a nice experience for you. He takes him, and Baruch Hashem, they made the bus. And the bus hadn't left yet. He drops him off in Vision to Besmerish, and the bus still has a half hour to come. He leaves them off there. 10 minutes later, the Eid is back with a bag of cookies and cold drinks to give him, so he should have. It's a hot day to have what Tzedel HaDerech. Now let's think this story through a minute. There's 3 ways a person could approach such a situation. You're walking down, it's Erev Yontif. Everybody's busy. It's Erev Yontif, right? You see somebody who obviously missed the bus. Now there's one person, a very selfish person, who's going to say, I just didn't see him, and walk right by. Not going to notice him. That's the easiest way out. Most of us, we're Yid. I'm very busy, but I'm a Yid. I can't leave a guy waiting there. He's lost. He obviously has no way to get somewhere. It seems like he doesn't have an Eitzah. My tough luck, I'm stuck with it, right? I got to look after it. I've then been a Chayid. Fine. So, I'll help him. I'll even take him home. But I still got to go buy flowers. I still got to go to mikveh. I still got to help. And I got many things. It's Erev Yontif. So let me just get rid of him. And once I get rid of him, shine. I did my chesed. I'm done. I did my good deed for the day. And Baruch Hashem, I feel good. But there's a third way. This Eid walked down the street and he said, I see a beautiful esrig. There's a Yid who needs a chesed. I'm so excited. I can help him. What can I do for him? And I'm going to go, and after I leave him off, I'm still going to come back. Because maybe there's some more I can help him with. This is the midah of his pashtus, the midah of chesed. To think, there's a Yid here in Monsey who had a hisnagus. Today, it's not so appreciated because today it's not such a big tova. But there was a time when it was a very big tova. Any time a meshulach would come to his house, first thing he would ask him was, when was the last time you spoke home? A Yid from Yerushalayim would come. Did you have a chance to come? Come, first sit down, make a phone call, call your mishpacha, let them know you're all right. Today, a phone call long distance is not a big deal. There was a time when it costed money. Think. Not just how do I patter him up without him being angry at me? Or how do I patter him up even in a good way? What can I do? What can I give? I'm searching for a way to extend myself to give chesed. Now the emes is, many of us are very stressed. We have many obligations. Some of us, we struggle for ourselves. All our koiches go pasha for parnasa. It's very difficult. Yet we should realize chesed doesn't add stress. Chesed heals stress. Because stress and pressure is tsar, is contracting of the nefesh. Chesed is hispashtus. It's the opposite way. It's revocho. It's spreading outward. There's no greater healing power for a matzav when a person feels oppressed than to go out and do a tova for somebody. Because that relieves the nefesh of the tsar ha-nefesh. It's moitzi it mitzora l'revocha. Now the first person who introduced chesed into the world was Avraham Avinu. Now let's try to imagine the situation. Sometimes it's difficult to do a chesed. We're stressed out. It's difficult. We have our own problems. We have our own obligations. Avraham Avinu is sitting outside his tent. He's a man of 99 years old. He just underwent a serious operation. He's Yom Shlishi Lemila. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Hoitzi Chama Min Artika, means it was a blistering hot day. Nobody ventured out. You're potter from everything. And a day like this, everything closes down. Avram wasn't satisfied. He sent out his Eved. Look out in the street. Maybe there's somebody, maybe there's a traveler who needs a place. And when his Eved came back and said, I didn't find it, the Gemara says, no, he said, an Eved, maybe he's not Nemon. Maybe there's somebody out there who he can still find. I don't trust him. A better terrorist than that. I tried my best. He's not there. And wait till the afternoon to do your chesed. It'll get a little bit cooler. What is the big rush? What does it mean Yom Shlishi? Rabbi Elapian said, Yom Shlishi Lemila. Think, In Shechem, on Yom Shlishi Lamila, B'Yosem Koyavim, Shimon V'Levi went and slaughtered an entire country, an entire city of Shechem. Vayavoyu aloir betach vayahargu kol zocha means they were so secure because they knew that Yom Shlishi Lamila nobody can move. And yet Avraham Avinu at age 99, in this boiling hot day, sees 3 Arabs who are apparently over the Avodah Zarah. And what does he do? Vayishtachu orzo. He runs, Valaboko rotz Avram, Vayorotz l'krosam, Vayimaher, Ho'oyelo, Mahri, Vayimar says he's running like a young man. Man, what's the rush? Maybe schlep a little bit. You're not entitled to slink along a little bit on a day like that. Oh. Dr. Belia Lapian, because chesed is v'holachto b'drochov. We're being dovik in the way of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chesed is ein gvul. So Avraham Avinu, who was the tziner of chesed, understood it's without a gvul. A Yid told me years ago, he went to the country to visit the Alter Sklener Rebbe, Zechat Tzadik B'Kodesh L'Varacha. He was in a bungalow colony, and he seemed in good spirits, in good health. He came back 3 weeks later. He heard the Rebbe had a heart attack. He was in the hospital. He says, what happened? At that time, I think there was 10 or 11 Jews in Iraq were put into prison on trumped-up charges, and when they were sakonas misa. There was no telephone in the bungalow counter. There was just a telephone booth. The old Sklener Rebbe, who was a broken, unhealthy man, he could barely see, sat for hours and hours in that phone booth, calling up every senator, any political. Rebbe said, what can you do? Go fight then. What can you do? No, maybe we can do something. Made himself ill until Rahman al-Tzanabach, he got a heart attack. Because he understood chesed is what he just went without a gvul, the midah of Avraham Avinu. There was a groise Yid who lived in Lakewood, at the Schia Tenom, Rav Aaron Kreuzer, Zechat Tzadik L'Vracha, who was a goy in Olam, who was one of the biggest masmidim in this country, who was loy posik pume migirse. Yet his involvement with any person who needed a toiva, he could listen to a person's sound, just cry and do anything he could for the person. He was discovered that he Nebuchadnezzar machla, and they didn't give him long to live. It's a matter of weeks. And he was in the hospital. I got a phone call from a chaver of mine in the hospital, visiting him. He says, I just have to call you, I have to describe to you the scene that's going on here. Rav Aaron is lying in his bed, surrounded by people, by visitors, with a huge smile, and all he's doing is calling this one a job for this younger man, a shidduch for that one. Anybody who comes in, what are you in? Oh, you're in kashrus. I know a good younger man, it could be a good mashgiach. He's just non-stop spending the last weeks of his life doing nothing else in his weakened state with a simcha. How could I utilize? And it was a Yid who had what to do with his time. But he understood, B'chol Choisman, this is the midah of Avraham Avinu. Now Avraham Avinu introduced a new shita, a new ideology into the world. The antithesis to Avraham Avinu at that time was the sinful city of Sodom. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos tells us there are different midos. One who says Shali Shaloch v'Shaloch Shaloch is a chassid, and one who says Shali Shali v'Shaloch Shali is a rasha, and one who says Shali Shali v'Shaloch Shaloch yesh oimrim that this is midas Sodom. Now one could ask a question: why is the rasha seems much worse than the rasha says Shaloch Shali? What's yours is mine. And this guy says, pretty reasonable, what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. What's so terrible about that? Why is that midas Sodom? Why is it worse than a rasha? We find a similar Gemara. The Gemara in Sanhedrin brings the posek, Vayigdal chatas bas ami mechatas Sodom va'amoira, that the sins of Yerushalayim in the time of the Chum were worse than the sins of Sodom va'amoira. Yet we find that Sodom was destroyed forever and Yerushalayim would be rebuilt.
And the Gemara asks, why is this so? The Gemara says there was a difference. And Rashi's Masber, the difference because in Yerushalayim, you could still get a toiva. Even when Noshim Rachmani is Bishlu Yaldein, when they were never had to cook and eat human flesh, they would call over one another to come join in the Suda. But in Stoim, you couldn't get a toiva from somebody, so Stoim had to be destroyed for all time. Why is this so much worse? If the Avedas of the time of the Churban were worse than Stoim, so why is Stoim destroyed forever? There's a Gemara Masechta Bava Kama that says as follows. If one has a room in his house that he's not planning on renting out, and somebody else who needs a place to stay comes and sleeps in that room, if you want to charge him money, kaifen oisei al midas doim. That's called ze nehene v'ze loy choser. He has pleasure, he has a room, but ze loy choser doesn't cost you anything. You weren't going to rent it out anyway. It didn't cost you anything to give it to him, so that's midas doim. Why is that midas doim? What does it have to do with midas doim? There's a fascinating Bal Akedah, one of the Rishonim, the Akedah Yitzchak, who asked the Kasha, why do we find that the Chet of Stoim was apparently worse than the Chet of Pilegesh Begiva? If you look in the Psukim, Pilegesh Begiva, it seems terrible atrocities went on there. It seems much worse than what happened in Stoim, yet the punishment for Stoim was unequaled. And his Masber, it was a Maisa Shahoya, that in Stoim, the selfishness was legalized. There were Chukei Stoim. In Pilegesh Begiva it was an aberration. People did terrible things, but it wasn't the law of the land. In Stoim, these things were formulated, they were legislated, that one should not help somebody else. It was a way of life. Sheli, sheli, v'sheloch, sheloch made perfect sense. That was the law. You keep away from me, I keep away from you. Why is it? What does it mean when somebody doesn't want you to have hano from, I don't want you to have hano from my room, even though it doesn't cost me any money? Why don't I want you to have hano? We used to have a Goyish neighbor next to us who didn't own a car. But if anybody ever parked in his driveway, he would call the police. Why? He has no car. But it's mine. It's my driveway. I don't want you sleeping in that room, even though I don't need it, and you do, because it's mine. And what's mine has to be used for me. You use what's yours, and that makes sense, and that's ois gehalten, and that's law, and I believe in that's a correct way to live. How many of us think like that? Do you know why in Stoim they had a Stoim battle? You know what a Stoim battle was? There was a bed that if somebody was too short, they would pull him out till his feet reached the end of the bed. Why was it so important to them? Or if his feet were too long, they would chop it off. It's the same idea. Sheli, sheli, v'shaloch, shaloch. Every inch of that bed has to be used by me. If it's there, no, I have to use every ounce. Don't go over the gvul. They live their lives with an established pattern. The Rabbeinu Bechaya brings, they were the ones who created the idea of borders between nations. They had very lush, fertile land. And they said, we don't want anybody else should come in here. Just keep to yourselves. We'll look after ourselves. You look after yourselves. There's an expression, Chazal, that describes such an idea. It says, the person says to the bee, Loi me uktzach v'loi me dufshach. Don't give me your sting, don't give me your honey. You stick to you and I'll stick to me. We find interesting, the Chazal tell us the story about the one girl who gave Hachnosas Orchim in Stoim. What did they do to her? They smeared her with honey and let the bees come and sting her to teach her a lesson. You want to give duvshach, you'll get the uktzach. Don't get involved with other people. Stick to your side and don't let yourself ever be taken advantage of. It's mine. Like a kid who before his midas are developed, he sees somebody else jumping on his bicycle. He was playing in the sandbox. Get off, it's mine. It's mine. These midas have to be eradicated from a person. That is koifen oyesei al midas doim. We have to teach ourselves that it's fine somebody else should have hano from me. It's wonderful. I want to be a source when somebody needs a taiba should think of coming to me. They say when the Baditsheva came to one of the cities where he was Rav, so they told him that he made a t'nai that any new takonas they want to make have to come be discussed with the Rav. Anyway, they came to him one day. They want to make a new takana that any mishalochim who come to the town shouldn't go to the people's houses. They should just go to one central place. And they'll give them money and they'll send. So the B'ditcheva says, "What are you coming to me for?" He says, "Well, we said any new law we have to discuss the Rabbi." He said, "This is not a new law." He said, "This law already was in Stein. It was an old law. Keep to yourself. Keep away from me." Such an ideology is the ideology of Stein. And suddenly Avram Avinu went and proclaimed to the entire world, this is a mistake, this is not a law, this is Stein. And such a city will have to be sowed with salt where no one will ever be Nehenna, because if you're one who nobody can have Hana from, so you'll be destroyed. In Yerushalayim they did terrible Averis, but you can get a taiva out of somebody. Rab Tzaddik in his Svarim writes a very interesting nekuda. What's the opposite of chesed? You would think maybe geneva, taking somebody else's thing. He says the opposite of chesed is kinna. Why kinna? Kinna means I don't want somebody else to have, but it's more than that. A Baal kinna is upset not just when somebody else has something he doesn't. He's even upset when somebody else has something that he does have. He has a beautiful car and somebody else has the same beautiful car. The Baal kinna can't bear that either. He doesn't want to see somebody else having. Chesed means a rotzain, a pleasure, an enjoyment in seeing somebody else having. So we need to be mechazik ourselves, because we all have a natural teva to some degree of selfishness. And it's not an easy thing for us to change ourselves. We mentioned before the pasuk, Koyomar Hashem Zacharti lo chesed ne'urayich, ahavas klu lo'isayich. The Rebbeinu Shalom remembers until this day how we went after him in the Midbar. And the question is asked, the Yidden did some extraordinary things before that. Yidden lived for 210 years in Mitzrayim. There were tens of millions, or maybe even hundreds of millions, according to some Midrashim. And Chazal were made, there was not one case of Gilui Arayos in all the 210 years of all these millions of people living in Erev HaSa'aretz. Lo ishinu es l'shoinam es malbusham ve'es shemom. They kept the Kedusha of Tahara, a separate nation, without seeing the Eser Makkos, when they were being tormented and tortured by their oppressors. All that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't remember. He just remembers when they went out of Mitzrayim after seeing Eser Makkos, seeing unbelievable miracles. We had enough faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu to go after them, and this he remembers for thousands of years. Why not the other things? The answer is, Rabbi Isai, a person in his own matziv, staying in his own situation, we're prepared to do many great things. As long as I don't have to change my life, I don't have to change my lifestyle, I don't have to make a move and become someone else, I can do marvelous things. A person's a Baal Gaiva. You could talk to him about anything except becoming Ois Baal Gaiva. You can get him to learn, you can get him to stop speaking Lashon Hara, you can get him to give tzedakah, but you can't even begin to talk about being machniya myself. It doesn't come into question. He's like a runaway train. He's closed. I can't change my essence of who I am. I could do anything but from the position that I am. So to leave, to become from avodim into b'nei chayrin, change your whole life. Lech teich achrei b'midbar be'eretz lo yizorua. Oshinui hateva. That's the greatest schus a person can do, and the Rebbeinu Shalom remembers it to this day. Zocharti loch chesed ne'urayich ahavas kelu lo yisoyeh. If we can affect it, and it will take work, but if we can affect a change, a fundamental change, and be kinder, through again and again, through repetitive chazorah of maisim of chesed, and we can be kinder within ourselves, we can internalize a zufriedenkeit, a happiness to see somebody else get from me. That would be the greatest schus in the world. So we have to analyze, how do we think? Somebody wants a taiba from us. But we start thinking, why should I do it? Why should I do it? It's my money, it's my time, it's my energy. I should do for him, and this time I could be doing for myself. I start thinking, well, the Yetzer Hara starts, it's the behemoth within us. The Adam Hamayla says, the behemoth, these are all animal sounds that are coming out of the person. Rabbi Chanan said a person has a whole zoo inside his nefesh. So you're hearing all sorts of animal noises saying, what are we saying? My time is for me. My money is for me. The blessings HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave are for me. Sheli, Sheli. We're talking like Stoim. Fakert, the whole idea of chesed is to say, Sheli, Sheloch. Sheli, yes. Chesed doesn't mean to give what you don't need. Chesed means to give what's rightfully mine. As the Goyen says, the Lashon of the Goyen in Mishlei, in Perek Gimel, Chesed, Nikra Davar She'ein Ha'adam Mechuyev Litein Lezulas. Ha'atovo hu b'toiras chesed, to give what I'm not obligated to give. V'chein b'Kadosh Baruch Hu, it says v'rav chesed she'noisin ma she'eina chayiv klal litein. To give what's specified, what's designated for myself, that is the act of chesed. That's the mitzvah. There's no other mitzvah. Rabbi Yechiel Michal Gordon, the Lomger Yeshiva, was once collecting money in London for his yeshiva. And he got a letter from his daughter in Lomger, and he opened up the letter and he fainted on the spot. When he came to, he showed Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky what it said in the letter. He had a daughter who was just about to get married, and he had borrowed money, $500, in order to provide for them. They should be able to set up the $500 then, but with a lot of money. And she wrote him a letter. I have a friend, this and this name, Freda, who was meant to get married, and her father promised a nod in the $500, and he couldn't, and the shidduch was about to become bottled. So my chosen and I decided that we're going to give them the $500, and we'll manage without. When he read this, he fainted. Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky was so nespoiled, he said, I feel it will be the biggest chus. Come, I'm going to take you to all the rich men in London. And he managed to raise the $500. And when he wanted to send it off to his daughter, he asked him, I want to have the schus of putting the money into the mailbox. I want it to be my schus. When someone takes something that's meant for me, sheli, and says sheloch, that's what chesed is. Yeah, I'd rather sleep now. I'd rather take it easy. And if I'm working, I might as well do something for myself that I'll have benefit. Chesed means no. If it's yours, let's give it to somebody else. The Skelenet Rebbe Zatzal, when he lived in Romania, he had managed to put together a matzah bakery for the Romanian Yidden to make matzahs, Erev Pesach matzahs. And there were many Yidden who wanted, and they couldn't provide for everybody, so there was a rule, only one matzah per person. There was another Rebbe there, the Sefirah Rebbe, who lived also in a nearby city, and he insisted he wants 2 matzahs. He went to Skelenet Rebbe. He said, I have to have 2 matzahs. I can't give you this. I can't. There are people waiting. You can't have 2 matzahs for yourself. He said, I have to have 2 matzahs. I have to have 2 matzahs. Finally, he couldn't withstand the pressure. He gave him the 2 matzahs. A half hour before this man, a shliach comes to the Skelenet Rebbe's house from the Sefirah Rebbe, and he's holding a matzah. Said the Sefirah Rebbe sent this matzah for you. He knew you would give away your last matzah. You wouldn't keep one for yourself. So he insisted on taking 2 matzahs so that you should have one too. He had the hasogah. It's not for me. It's for somebody else. To give away his ruchnius for somebody else. I have an uncle who lives in Tzvas. A Tair Zisa Yid. He's a Breslover Chassid. And years ago, then before the Breslover Chassidim would go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah, he couldn't go then. Russia was closed. So they used to get together in Miron. And he kept asking me to come once. So once I went to Rosh Hashanah, spent Rosh Hashanah the Breslover Chassidim. It was a very doiben Rosh Hashanah. Anyway, he and his mishpacha, and there were a few Askanim who lived in Tzfat, and they provided the whole Shabbos. And he was telling me before Yom Tov what a beautiful davening it is. It's unbelievable. The Tkiyah Shofar, the Tfilas, the Kavana, the Oilam, it's Pillei Plum, Mamish, you can't miss it, you have to come. Now, but the few Yidden who lived there are busy preparing and cooking and setting up for everybody. No, gewaldige avodah, gewaldige chesed. By the davening, I noticed that he's outside of the Ma'orah. We all in the Ma'orah of Shem Bayechoy. And there's a quick minion outside davening up Schnell. And he's davening with the few eyes. I says, what's going on? You're not there? How do I have time to daven with the main minyan? We have to see everybody has what to eat. So here Hayidin, who the biggest Tana in the world, there would be the daven and the Groise minyan, says, no, I'm not even, the whole Rosh Hashanah that I'm preparing for these hundreds of Yidden that they should be able to have, I'm not going to enjoy it. You'll have it, and I'll be in the kitchen mixing the potatoes. Sheli Shalach. When one acts this way, he's mizdabek b'koinoi mamish. So we need constant chizuk, constant chizuk. The first thing we have to remember when we have a nisayon of an act of chesed, we have to realize that every time we're giving, we're being dovik in Hashem mamish. We're becoming one. We're becoming that much closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom. The second thing we should remember, that doing chesed, Mida keneged Mida Kodesh Baruch Hu bestows chesed upon us. The lashon of the Tzavor of Rabbi Eliezer Agadol, he writes, Kol ha'oise chesed chinom. If one does chesed for no reason, just for the sake of chesed, Kodesh Baruch Hu oise imoy chesed chinom, even if lufi masav he's not roy that a Kodesh Baruch Hu should be mative to him. So we bring upon ourselves, how do we get goodness? We bring upon ourselves chasadim from the Rebbe. The Mesilas Yesharim writes, somebody who doesn't want to do a favor. Hadin noisin shegam imoy atzmoy lo yinogu mishamayim elakafi shuras hadin. The Rebbe Shalom says, you want to do shali, shalach, din? You want din? Chas v'shalom, the Rebbe Shalom will give that person din. And the Mesilas Yesharim says, Umi hu zeh ve'ezehu sheyuchal lamoid im HaKadosh Baruch Hu noig imoy kafi shuras hadin. Who could stand before Hashem if David HaMelech was mispal al tovei b'mishpot es avodecho ki lo yitztag lefonecha kol chai. The Chofetz Chaim told an unbelievable ma'aseh. Chofetz Chaim told a story. There was a Yid he knew who had lost many children. And he came to the Chofetz Chaim asking for an eitz. Chofetz Chaim, I don't know an eitz, I don't know a school. One thing I can tell you, maybe you'll open a gemach and you'll help with gemilas chesed, with loans to people. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will pay you mida keneg and mida will be zeiche to chesed. And so the man took the idea and he opened the gemach, and one of the takonas of the gemach was that every 3 years the askonim would get together, they would make a suda, they would make an asifa to mechazik the gemach. In the 3rd year, the Yid was zeiche to have a child, and the child's bris was on the day that the asifa was meant to be. The asifa was meant to be in the parish of Kesef Talbes Ami. That was the day that they made the bris. And you can imagine the simcha, and the Yid was zeiche to have many, many children after this. And then he became very wealthy, and he was very matzliach, and he became very busy, and he decided that to keep running this gemach is too difficult for him. He's going to put other people, capable people, will be brought in to run the gemach. No, but he held a shail of a neder. Maybe he undertook a dover type, so he went to a Rav to be mata neder. And the Rav said, I don't think it's a good idea. He did a good tazach. Maybe he says, no, I really can't. I tried every eitzah. And finally he was mata his neder. The next day, the Yid came back crying. Came back to the Rav and said, I want to go immediately back. He says, this very night, one of his children choked to death. The Afike Yam told over the story after the Chofetz Chaim's Ptira, and he said that the story happened in Radin, and the Rav who was Mata Neder was the Chofetz Chaim himself. Hasla of a fella. What chesed brings into a person's life. A person thinks he's losing. He's not losing. The Gra writes in his Pirush in Mishlei, Misha goimel chesed lebriois, goimel chesed la'atzmoi. It's the healthiest thing for a person, not just loyal and for himself too. He writes, Kigama chedim yigmalu chesed, others will do him toivus back. And apparently that's not a falsche kavana. There's chesed shel emes. You don't want anything back. But chesed, because a person knows if he'll do chesed, others will have him in mind, it's fine too. That's also chesed. V'chein HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishalem gemuloi v'ol of nema goimel nefesh is chesed. Avadas, I think that's chesed shel emes. I heard a ma'aseh. Rabbi Ephraim Wachsman told me a story. There was a Yid, Rabbi Yoki Toiv, the road to Sefirah Shiurim. Somebody in Eretz Yisrael, the Yid once asked him before he was traveling to America, you're going to America, I have an uncle who always sends me money before Pesach. And this year he didn't send. When you're in America, just drop into him. Maybe you could remind him, give him regards from me. He'll get the idea to send me some money. Kid, so he went there and he came back. He brought him back 500 shkolim. I guess that time it was lira, whatever it was. And the fellow said, what do you tell me? He always sends me dollars. What do you do? He said, I did you a favor. He says, I didn't want you to have to mitchazach with the change. So I went to the bank. I changed the dollars into shkolim. He says, what? You went into the bank? In the bank you pay much more money. You would have done it over here in the neighborhood by the chevra who know how to do it, and you would have gotten a much better rate, and you owe me money. He was screaming at him. He said, finally he schlepped him to a Rav. And the Rav paskin that he was mazik him, and he asked to pay him, and he paid him. When Rabbi Yoki Tov was nifta, this man came to Menachem Ovel. And he said, I want to tell you this story. And I found out that the reason that my uncle hadn't sent me the money was because he was nifta that year. And he had given his own money. And all this time he hadn't said a word. Chesed, tell the greats chesed b'chshai, chesed that's quiet. The midas hadin can't be mekatrig. Special madrega. Person should look for that too. A special madrega to be able to do chesed that no one ever knows about. We have to be constantly be mechazik ourselves. It says it's brought in the Swarm to the special inyan to do chesed to people we don't like, to people who we feel maybe we don't owe anything to. And the Svarim bring, we know Yisurin. Yisurin is an unbelievable kapara. We don't want to have Yisurin. The Yisurin that a person has, that he has to do chesed, something takes koyach and takes energy. For some people it's difficult because it's really sometimes against our nature, are considered Yisurin that are mechaper avodas. So why go through Yisurin, I'll go through the Yisurin of mutching sich to do a taiva for a zweite yid. And we have to live with it. The Shloah Kodesh writes, Yizor Adam, a person should live with a cheshbon, lasais chesed every day. It's a pasuk, chesed keil kol hayoim. To think of where I can do, and especially a quiet chesed. There's so many little things we can do that are beikeir rekiyim. Here's another important nekuda, very important nekuda in avodas hachesed. We know Avraham Avinu had asar nisyonos. And most Rishonim list the order as the Akedah being the 10th Nisayan. But there are some Rishonim who hold the Akedah was the 9th Nisayan, and the 10th Nisayan was Kvuras Sora. That Avraham Avinu couldn't get a keva for Sora. He had to bow down to the Bnei Ches, and he had to pay the money to get, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised him Eretz Yisrael. So I'll fragen the Kashach, my good, Nisyonis have to go Mikal El HaKosher. We would understand the Akedah, the last Nisayan, makes a lot of sense. But big deal. He had to pay some money to buy. He had to pay some money to buy a plot of land. So what? That's such a terrible Nisayan. It comes after the Akedah. If you're talking Loima, there's such a thing as the hardest Nisayan, thing as the last Nisayan. There's a Nisayan that comes after one was Aymer in Nisyanis. Avraham Avinu was Midas HaChesed. And all of his Nisyanis were to be Mevara this Midah. He spent his whole life being Mekadesh Shem Shemaim, giving away from the Rebbeinu Shalom, doing Chesed with Bnei Doiroi, being Mekadesh Hashem, being Machar Shem Shemaim Ba'olam. And here you would think, Rebbeinu Shalom, and you promised me Eretz Yisrael, I'm entitled to a little bit of protection. After all, I just was ready to be, I was makriv my child on the Mizbeach. I was prepared to be makriv him. And after all this, I have to be humiliated. I got to bow down. I don't even get that much. I don't get that much special treatment. 4 Amos in Eretz Yisrael to bury his wife who just died, who was Moishe Nefesh together with him, who she made Gerim and Giyoris and Balei Tshuva. Avraham Avinu could have had a thought of Chalish Sadas. This is my thanks. This is what I get for it. He was Aymer in that Nisayan. In the beer of Midas HaChesed, Rabbi, so we have to know, one of the things we have to never be prepared for is that often when we do Chesed, people don't often have Hakaras HaTov. They're not always grateful. Sometimes we even repay it in the opposite way. We can't be done anybody. Part of the Nisayan of the Chesed is after the Chesed. Not to be toyal rishonos. If I'm going to be a Baal Chesed, that means I expect the thank you is a bonus. I once remember together with a group of chaverim, we had a chaver became a chos, and we decided we want to make a sheva brachas for him. There was one, we were working together. There was one young man who he felt he was very close to the chos, and he wanted everything, the best. We're going to buy and everything was always a question. No, most expensive. We're going to do it. It should be beautiful. I want it should be beautiful. And he persevered, and Mamela was really done very nicely. And the chosin came in late, as often happens. He ran out early, as often happens. And sometimes the chosin, the kala, but sometimes they're living in their own world. And he breathed in and breathed out. He didn't even thank The people who made the simcha. It happens. It happens. This fellow was so upset. What just happened? I'm thinking and working and planning for weeks. The guy came in, not even a thank you. I'm never going to make another Sheva Brachas in my life. People think like that sometimes. Part of Avodas HaChesed is to be oimed in the Nesoyin that comes after the Chesed. The Nesoyin o Asiri. The Rebbeinu Shel Olam remembers. The Rebbeinu Shel Olam knows. Many different forms of Chasadim we could do. One type of Chesed is Halvos. In Kesef, Talve es Ami. People are often afraid to lend money to people, and often rightfully so. A person can't make a reckless loan. You have to be sure if you're making a loan, you know that there's a cheshbon how a person is going to pay back. But how often do we sometimes just, I can't be bothered. I just don't feel like giving away my money, even though he can pay me back. There's a lashon in the Torah to describe this. The Torah says, if one would say, Hishama lecha, someone doesn't want to lend money before Shemitah. Penyem levavcha dover b'liyal leimor. Korva shnasa sheva shnasa Shemitah. V'ro einecha, your eye is evil. Ba'achicha evyoin. V'loi siten loi. Nosain titen loi. V'loi yera levavcha b'sitcha loi. That's what the Sefirah Shiurim points out. That's the same lashon that's used to describe people from the Ir Nidachas. Yotzu anoshim b'nei b'liyal. If I don't want to lend somebody money, I have to think, is it just Royal Lev? Is it just being B'lial v'ro einecha ba'achicha ha'evyoin? We have to be careful. There's a Moedik Elosh in the Pelayoyetz. The Pelayoyetz says, the Pasuk, Loi v'rosha lo yishalem v'tzadik choinen v'noisen. The Pelayoyetz says, tzadik goes on tzadikoi shel olam. Goes on the Rebbeinu shel olam. A person, if sometimes someone falls into a situation, Loi v'rosha v'lo yishalem, someone lends money, doesn't get paid back, tzadikoi shel olam, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, choynein, noisen, u'meshalem, l'malve es ha'hefsid choyvei mimokem acher. The Rebbeinu says, I'll pay you back from somewhere down the road, you'll get your money back. Kidei she'oise mitzvahs halvo lo yeda dovero. But a person who does a mitzvah of lending money should not come to have anything bad befall him. There's an Indian, a person should strive, his house should be a house of chesed. A place where a person comes in, he feels welcome. Not everybody has the capability to be a big machnes oirich, but when somebody comes, he should feel comfortable. A person could do chesed to a rabbim. How many times can you do a chesed at a beis medrash? After davening, put away a few svarim, pick up a few papers. The Rabbi Ephraim Wachsman Shlit once came into a city, and there was a shul in terrible, terrible condition. And he walked in and he saw what the shul looked at. He said, "Manoira hamokem hazeh ein zeh ki em beis elikim." The pasuk in Parshas Vayetz said, "Manoira, look how shrecklich this place looks. Ein zeh ki em beis elikim. Must be it's a beis elikim. No one else cares about it." It's the Rebbeinu Shalom. In my own house, nobody would do that. In a shul, people take liberties. Do a chesed to a rabbin. No one has to know. It could be just between the person and the Rebbeinu Shalom. Chesed b'nefesh. Give a person a good eitzah. Give a person a little bit of kavod. Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitz once wrote a letter to us. A Yid was in a Moshev Zakenu. He was in an old age home, and he wrote on the back, "Harav Chaim Shmulevitz Rosh Yeshivas Mir." I never knew Rabbi Chaim wasn't into titles. That was the last thing. He wouldn't even dream of the Shiva signing or something like that. Look, I don't know how much respect this man gets. He's an Adam Choshev. People will see he got a letter from a Rav or a Yeshiva. No. Maybe he'll give him some cover. He'll feel good. To have in mind, to think a little bit of chesed b'nefesh. Give somebody an eitzah in business, a business that you may know something about. Somebody else is starting. Somebody else needs a tova. So he told me here in Monsey, he opened up a practice in a city in upstate New York. He didn't know anybody. There's another Yid you happen to know. I used to see this Yid all the time. I never dreamt what a special person he is. He told me, yeah, he's got the same business in the same county, and he helped me. He introduced me to everybody there is to know. And he keeps checking up, man. A chesed. A gute eitzah for a Yid. A chesed b'nefesh. To be aware of the nisyonis. To know where selfishness creeps in. Many of us sometimes are very good in giving people, but there are situations which bring out the selfishness in us. Very often we become very selfish when it comes to our own children. When it comes to my kid, he's got to have everything, and everybody stands in his way out. Fasid us. What are we teaching the child? Just to be a taker? He should be a noitel, and he shouldn't have the opportunity to be Davik Bashem. The Skelener Rebbe Zangezun told over a Maisa when he was a little child. So his father was Megadol in the house, hundreds of Yisayim and war orphans. It was a freezing, bitter night, bitter cold night. And the Skelener Rebbe was walking around, and he saw there was a child who was shivering. So he went, and he was under a cover, and he went to his son, the Heintiger Rebbe, and he was under a light, thin cover. He took off his cover and put it on the other child. And soon his son woke up. He says, I'm freezing. Your mom wasn't shy. He said, I gave you cover to somebody else. And so he tried again. He couldn't fall asleep. He says, he's two covers. I don't have one. He says, yeah, but you have a father. You could say Tata. This child can't even say Tata. You have to give away your cover. Now the emes is, there are Gedorim. We talk about Chesed. There are halachadik Gedorim in where Kedima is. Al pi halacha, a person's wife has a kedima on chesed. Children have a kedima on chesed before. Shchenim, you have to give chesed to a shochan before, to a korev, anshir. There's a ganze seder in halacha. But it doesn't mean that we ignore somebody else. What was the Skelener Rebbe saying? He's saying, of course, I have to do chesed to my child first. But between these two children, he needs something more than he does. I don't say my child gets everything before the other child gets anything. Or my child has to have the best. That doesn't mean kedima, that means selfishness. He's got to have best man, and the other one should get nothing. There are many matzavim in life that bring out the selfishness. Sometimes when we make simchas, brings out the worst. That's a shmuz fazich. Maybe we'll talk about it one time. How many nisyonis they could come, a person could have from the time he makes a simcha till he finishes. Tens of thousands of nisyonis a person goes through. And we have to be oimed and we have to know. But such pu'ulos of Gemilas Chesed day after day will change our neshamas, and we'll find that inside there's somebody much greater than we ever knew was in there. And what this does for us, the Heilige Chofetz Chaim told a Maise, the Chofetz Chaim's son, told the story. It was a Yid who came to the Chofetz Chaim, asked for a bracha help in Parnasa. So what was his Parnasa? He was a boot manufacturer, and he supplied the Russian army with boots. So the Chofetz Chaim said to him, "Mestama, the Rishoyim give you a hard time. They send down buyers and they passel every other boot. This one's no good. This we can't pay you for this." He says, "Rebbe, they give me a hard time, but you have to know how to." There's something called kabar. Kabar was in Russia, meant everything went with you had to grease the wheels a little bit, and if you smear them into, they'll already buy from me. He was a little bit embarrassed. He told the Chofetz Chaim that's how he does his business. So the Chofetz Chaim said, "Think. When we come to Shamayim, we also have to show our schayra. And they're going to take our learning and our davening, every bracha we made, every Shemana Esrei, and then you go through, like you go through the boots, and they're going to say, this one's no good, this one was worthless, this one was out kavanah, this one you skip, this mitzvah shaloi l'shmo." Says, how do we get it through? He says, in Shamayim, Chidush v'Dach Chofetz Chaim, you could also be meshachet. Meken shmiren in Shamayim. This kabar, in Russian it was called kabar. Kabar in Shamayim is Gemilas Chasodim. If we're oisik in Gemilas Chasodim, we'll be able to push through the schayre. Mestama, it's because Mida Keneged Mida, Moira Mida Sachesed. I'll tell a story. Reb Pinchas ben Yoer. Some people left over by him two measures of soirin of barley, and they never came to pick it up. So he planted it, and it grew a field. He planted it again and again. He gathered it together in warehouses for 7 years. And then they came back and he showed them miles and miles of barley fields, of storage houses. This is all yours. Fragt Reb Elya Lapian, says, where did he take such koiches hanefesh from? From where? Can you imagine what this means? Just to run a person's own business. He's day and night schlepping and cutting and fertilizing and gathering together and buying warehouses. All for what? Not for myself, for somebody else. He's working day and night for somebody else. For wie nennt man azelige koiches? Sagt because the midah of chesed is to be dovik bekoinoi. We say in the bracha of Birchas Krishma, Zereat tzedakos. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't just take a tzedakah that we do and put it in the freezer. He plants it, and that plants and grows another field and another field. And you know what comes out from tzedakah v'chesed? You know what seeds tzedakah, what payers they produce? Zayreat tzedakos, matzmiach yeshuos, boirei refuos, From these seeds is where Refuahs and Yeshuas come from Yidden for Yidden. The Lashon Sefer Chasidim steht, Hanoisen Tzedakah L'Shem Shamayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zoyra. He doesn't just take it, he plants it. V'Zoyra Began Eden V'Tzoimchem, and it grows. V'Chol Shana V'Shana, Machnisim Lo Eitzra. He takes it into his storage houses. V'Nena Mehem Lo Elam Abba, that says in the Pasuk, Or Zeru Al Tzadik, a Chesed, a Tzedakah, a Toiva Yid does somebody else's mispashet. It doesn't just go into the freezer, it's planted. The Eibush the Zoyreya Tzedakah, so Zayin Taka Matzmiach Yeshua Esva'al Yidin, who should be Zoyche from this mid of his pashtus of Oilam Chesed Yibon, the Rebbeinu Shem should do Chesed with Klal Yisrael, which should be Zoyche to Matzmiach Yeshua, to Yeshua Gedoyle of Bias Mashiach Tzedkeinu Hermenu Amen.